Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I got great news for you. If you've been waiting for the weekend, it is here. It is Friday, and when I'm finished with this show, I'm going to take off and go fishing, so I'm all excited, and I'm excited to bring you a great show. We're going to start out with Ilhan Omar and Congresswoman Boebert from Colorado. They've been having kind of a battle royale on Twitter and on the House floor, and it is getting, as they say, hot up in here, and we're going to talk about what all of that means in just a moment. And then Joe Biden, the Biden administration, if their solution to the energy crisis, if we're having one, the gas prices, is to blame the energy companies, and now they're turning around and talking about closing even more pipelines. Yeah, I know that's hard to believe, but closing a pipeline that is functioning great, bringing tons of energy from Canada into the United States literally as we speak, and has been for years, and the Biden administration is considering canceling it. I kid you not. But before we go any further, this portion of the show, I always talk about opportunities for savings and everything for you. Look above the video, no matter when or where you're watching it, and click on the BDU link, Big Daddy Unlimited. You will get factory direct pricing on guns and ammunition. Yes, I said guns and ammunition delivered directly to your door at factory direct pricing, as well as over 100,000 related items. Now, if you want to see just how much money you can save, check out the program that precedes us, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, an hour before us, Denny's Deals. Now, Denny broadcasts over our John Martin Talks Facebook site. He also goes across our Facebook site called Excluded. Now, to get to Excluded, you drop the E and spell Excluded with just a big X, Excluded. Check out Denny's Deals. What Denny does is he talks for about 15, sometimes 20 minutes or so, no more than that, and he shows you products from the Big Daddy Unlimited arsenal, demonstrates them, talks about them, and then he shows you the direct manufacturing pricing you would get direct from the factory to you, saving you literally potentially tens of thousands of dollars, depending on how much you buy. Once you see that and you're excited as I am to give it to you, go back above the video, our video, click on Big Daddy Unlimited, and follow the directions, and those savings will be yours. And nothing quite says I love you at Christmas time, or any time for that matter, than a little stocking stuffer, maybe a .22 pistol, maybe some ammunition, all that kind of stuff. Check it out. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the show. This first story comes to you via Breitbart, and it is about a cat. Texas to say cat fight, I don't know. That's just the way I was brought up, man. Ilhan Omar insurrectionist Lauren Boebert, that's what she calls her, that's a congresswoman from Colorado, sleeps with a pervert, this is Ilhan Omar's words, defecates on the House floor. So she's responding, and I'm going to play the video she's responding to in just a moment. But this is kind of, I won't call it a love triangle, but you'll understand as time goes on. The one is Ilhan Omar, the other is Mr. Swalwell from California, and the one there in the middle, the smallest, and she is a small lady, but boy does she cast a big shadow, is Lauren Boebert. She's become a hero of mine. So that's the ones that are kind of involved in this little dust-up, shall we say. The ongoing feud between Representative Lauren Boebert of Colorado, Republican, and squad member, I call them the Twitter trots, by the way, because to me it's more descriptive of who they really are, but the squad member Ilhan Omar, Democrat from Minnesota, spilled out from the halls of Congress and into Twitter on Wednesday as the two traded blows in an all-out character assault. So it's basically, let's get ready to rumble time, right? And that reminds me that we're on Rumble every single day. We're now broadcasting live on Rumble and YouTube as well. It's a great place to see our show. Hello, Rumblers. Hello, YouTube. We're trying to spread we're determined, me and Billy Bob, if you haven't seen my psychic sidekick, Billy Bob Bass, he's got a Twitter handle, by the way. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. And we're determined to stay in the public square, in social media, far and wide. So like us, share us, spread the word out there, because we're under the gun. You know, conservative program has a difficult time getting out, so we need your help. You know, not everybody can be a fighter, but everybody can support those of us in the fight, and that's what you need to do. So go to Rumble, go to YouTube, Facebook, spread us out far and wide. But I want to make an offer, you know, because if you've watched our show any length of time, and if you haven't, glad to have you. Welcome. Howdy, how are you? Where you been? You're in the right place now. Seriously entertaining, but not politically correct. But I'm always trying to help. Here at John Martin Talks, we're always trying to help. So I am offering my services to Miss Omar and Miss Boebert, because I am willing to referee a cage match, a no-holds-barred match, anywhere, anytime, and I'll even travel to where you are on my own dime. So, you know, I'm always trying to help. My offer is real, and it stands the test of time. Let's keep going. Earlier Wednesday, as the House voted on whether or not to censor Representative Paul Gosar. Now, this guy, Mr. Gosar, he got censored by some Republicans. I think 2 voted, the rest did not. But all the Democrats, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and of course Ms. Boebert didn't vote for it, but they censored Representative Paul Gosar of Arizona. What Mr. Gosar did was he put out a tweet that it depicted him killing, basically, in some form or fashion. I did not see the tweet. I think Biden and Pelosi, I believe. And he apologized, took the tweet down, but of course they smelled blood in the water and they came after Gosar, and you know, they voted to censor him. So this all surrounds that, and Ms. Boebert was defending, she wasn't defending Congressman Gosar, and I'm going to play the video in just a minute. What she was really doing is talking about how ridiculous it is for Democrats to literally censor anyone for bad behavior. So let's, I set this up, so let's keep going. Earlier Wednesday, as the House voted on whether or not to censor Representative Paul Gosar of Arizona, for Republican, for previously retweeting a cartoon video in which he killed Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York with a sword, and Boebert took the House floor to jab several Democrats for their past sins. So I'm going to play you this like 2-minute video. This is Congresswoman Boebert, and man, does she's become a hero of mine. It is. We'll break down a little bit about what she's talking about with these various Democratic members of Congress, because you may not understand it, but I'll break it down for you in just a minute. Check it out.
Policies are so pathetic and have done so poorly that the left has nothing else to do but troll the internet looking for ways to get offended and then try to target members and strip them of their committees. This is a dumb waste of the House's time. But since the Speaker has designated the floor to discuss members' inappropriate actions, shall we? The Jihad Squad member from Minnesota has paid her husband, and not her brother husband, the other one, over $1 million in campaign funds. This member is allowed on the Foreign Affairs Committee while praising terrorists. A Democrat chairwoman incited further violence in the streets outside of a courthouse. And then the cherry on top, my colleague and 3-month presidential candidate from California, who is on the Intelligence Committee, slept with Fang Fang, a Chinese spy. Let me say that again. A member of Congress who receives classified briefings was sleeping with the enemy. This is unacceptable, and this would never be.
Time's expired. Gentleman from Florida.
I'll put that back up on my Facebook page later today, and so you can go back and listen to it. But what the 3 people she's specifically talking about, at first she's talking about Ilhan Omar, and you know, Ilhan Omar, and there's plenty of evidence of this, apparently she married her brother. You understand? And married her brother, not an incestuous thing, I think, to simply circumvent the law and get him to be a citizen or at least legally in the United States. So that's why she says not that husband, but the other. But what Ilhan Omar did, she divorced her brother, by the way, and she married this lobbyist dude, this campaign manager, and she's paying this guy from campaign funds. This is what Boebert is talking about. Over $1 million a year. Her own husband is being paid by her campaign funds over $1 million a year. And then she talks about, and we'll play some more video here in just a minute that kind of proves this. She talks about how Omar is on the House, I think, Foreign Affairs, and she supports terrorists, which is absolutely true. There's really no doubt about that, and I'll expand on that in a minute. And then she talks about this congresswoman that sits on the banking committee that actually chairs it, I believe, and she's talking about Maxine Mad Max Waters. When Maxine Waters was on the streets after the George Floyd incident, when the police officer Chauvin, I think is how you say his name, when he was convicted of murder in this, she was on the streets calling for violence. She literally was. We played this actually a couple of days ago on the show. By the way, if you want to see a podcast, one of the great ways to do it is to go to our excluded app. So go to your app store and spell excluded by dropping the E, put the big X up there, get the excluded app. Our show is archived there on a daily basis, as well as tons of other programming, including original Big Daddy Unlimited programs. So check all of that out, the excluded app. But Maxine Waters, I played the video a couple days ago. She was out in front on the streets while Chauvin was, they were waiting on the jury to come back. And she literally said that they needed a guilty verdict, and if not, they needed to stay in the face, stay on the streets, and get up in police officers and protesters and all that face. In other words, she was calling for violence, like they said in the Breonna Taylor case, you know, the Black Lives Matter. We didn't get it, burn it down, which Maxine Waters has been all about advocating for violence all along. And as Billy Bob said, if you hadn't met my son, I think I talked about Billy Bob earlier, but anyway, he asked me right then, has any video of Maxine Waters ever been taken down from YouTube? You know, ours have, and those kind of things, and I'm all due deference to algorithm. We're trying to obey the rules best we can. Don't even tell us why we're being taken off and shadow banned and locked up in Facebook jails and whatnot. We're determined to stay in the square. But has Maxine Waters ever had a video taken down when she has literally threatened? You remember in the one video, she was talking about Trump supporters and members of Trump's cabinet, that you need to circle them, get them in their face and tell them you're not welcome here. I mean, this lady advocates violence all the time. And Billy Bob's right. Any of her videos been taken down? And the third person that Congressman Boebert's talking about is Swalwell. And he actually was sleeping with the enemy. I mean, he was sleeping with a known spy. He's on the Intelligence Committee, for God's sakes, and he was sleeping with a known spy for the Chinese Communist Party. No one even disputes that. And we're going to talk about Mr. Swalwell's response here in just a moment. But Ms. Boebert, man, is a hero to me. They hate her. I love her. I'm just telling you the way it is. Swalwell, here we get into Mr. Swalwell, fired back on Twitter. He said, weird, if I had done anything wrong, the FBI would have raided my house. See, they're talking about that because a former campaign manager, Boebert, got his house raided. So that's why they're referring. He said, the Swalwell said they didn't, talking about the FBI, and went as far as to issue a statement saying, I did nothing wrong. They didn't say, now notice he doesn't deny sleeping with this gal. He just said there's nothing wrong with it, you know, and maybe there's not. I don't know, fang banger or whatever. But yesterday, they did raid the home of Boebert's campaign manager. They're always projecting. So the FBI raid on a progressive Democrat? They perish the thought. When do they do that? They raid, I mean, they put frogmen against Roger Stone. They literally went there and knocked on the door. CNN, remember that video? And he's there going like, yeah, how can I help you? At 5 o'clock in the morning. How did CNN know they were going to do it? Your guess is as good as mine. I think you know. And they had frogmen on this dude. He was in an overcoat. And they literally, I mean, the list is long of, well, they're going to raid parents. You know, we did a show about that a couple days ago as well. The FBI, man, when it comes to investigating Americans, they seem to have one size. There is no double standard. I keep telling you that. There's a standard for people on the right. There's a standard for Boebert. There's a standard for Marjorie Taylor Greene. There's a standard for John Martin Talks. What standard is Swalwell or Ilhan Omar held to? So there is a standard. There is no double standard, just no standard for these people, man. However, Swalwell's retort came nowhere near the amount of venom that Ilhan Omar spewed, imagine that, accusing Boebert of being married to a pervert, among other unwholesome acts. Well, before we go any further, let's talk about Miss Omar just a minute. Remember this video where she talks about what happened on 9/11? Now remember, we're just going to play a snippet of it. This is when she's talking to CARE, this Council for Islamic something or other. Anyway, play it. Let's talk about it.
It was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
Some people did something.
Backlash.
Some people did. What she's talking about is the 9/11 terrorists that had the worst sneak attack in American history since Pearl Harbor, when they crashed 2 planes into the World Trade Center, when they crashed a plane into the Pentagon, when they would have crashed a 3rd plane either into the White House or the Capitol if those patriots hadn't said, let's roll, and took them down in Pennsylvania. Yeah, those are somebody did something. Remember that. And keep in mind, she's talking to CARE there when she's saying that, okay? CARE was founded by Hamas, a terrorist organization on the terrorist watch list. Now, Ilhan Omar has raised money for Hamas, and Hamas has raised money through CARE and donated to her. So if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it just might be a duck. And I'll turn that around and say, if it raises money for terrorists, if it supports terrorists, then it might actually be a terrorist. And so to me, that's Ilhan Omar. But Omar said this. She said, luckily, my dad was right. Luckily, you got taken into America. Otherwise, I might have gone to the floor to talk about this insurrection. Insurrectionist talking about Boebert, who can't be an insurrectionist. She was in the house, right? Who sleeps with a pervert. I am grateful I was raised to be a decent human being. She's talking about her husband, a pervert. We'll get to that in a minute. Grateful by a decent human being and not deprived person who shamefully defecates and defiles the House of Representatives. Now, this is Ilhan Omar. This picture, I want to point out something to you. What is she wearing? She's wearing something called the hijab. The hijab, which she got an exemption to wear, because you're not supposed to wear religious garments on the House floor. She got an exemption for this. Now, the hijab shows everything that is anti-woman. This is one of the things I don't understand. Why women would support a woman like, if you believe that women have equal rights, and heck, I put them above men many times. My dad used to say women are like 2 weeks ahead of men, whatever, and this is a point, you might get this if you don't get anything else. My dad used to say that, you know, if a woman, if you think of something, she thought about it 2 weeks ago, so you're always behind the 8 ball there. And I agree with him. To me, that's a positive thing. But she's wearing the hijab, which signifies total subjugation of women. You look at the countries that routinely have women that require, in many cases, women to wear these types of things, and it doesn't fare too well for them. So to me, Ilhan Omar doesn't have a leg to stand on. But Omar was referring to Boebert, talking about this sleeping with a pervert. She was referring to Boebert's husband, Jason, who was arrested in 2004. Now, I don't know if they were married at the time or not. Doesn't really matter, I guess. For public indecency and lewd exposure. And I'm not trying to take up for that, but there's a little caveat to it. After exposing his nether region, though, were his private parts, to 2 women in a bowling alley. Stephen Boebert claimed that he stuck his thumb through the fly of his pants as a joke. I've actually seen men do that. I'm not guilty of it. And I think it's rude and crude and indecent. But one of the women said, I know that it wasn't a thumb because thumbs aren't 6 inches long. Well, what? Let me just ask. I got to ask this question. What is it with politics and penises? I don't really get that. But it seems like that politics and penises keep popping up or raising up or whatever all the time. Do you remember, this is an oldie but a goodie, do you remember the debate between Donald Trump and Marco came up? Check it out.
Hands. Nobody has ever hit my hands. I've never heard of this one. Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee you.
Parents watching
That's
last night.
good enough. That's when he coined the phrase little Marco. I mean, Donald Trump, love him, hate him, or whatever. There ain't nobody like Donald Trump, man. Some people may say that's great. I say it's great because, you know, there's just one and only. But it always brings back to me the debate about the hands, measurement with the hands. Do you do it this way or is it like this? I'm not sure. I mean, that's an age-old thing. But what is it with politics and penises? And let me just tell you, fair or not, Rubio was done at that moment. I don't see Rubio ever being president of the United States. I think that Donald Trump did irreparable damage to that dude. Because I got to tell you, every time, and I come and go a little bit with Rubio myself. I think he's kind of redeemed himself somewhat as a senator, especially with the whole China policy and stuff. And he's a little tougher than he used to be. But I got to tell you, man, every time I see him, the first thing I think about, probably not right, but Billy Bob tells me that one thing about the hands thing, no matter what hands or whatever, we certainly need all hands on deck right now. So, you know, because, man, this ship we're in is sinking fast, and so we definitely need all hands on deck. I don't know if we need pocket rockets or not, but we'll see. Omar's reference to defecation likely stems from the report this January 6th commission precipitants in the Capitol Hill riot on January 6th relieved themselves in the halls of Congress. Well, first of all, if you're talking about Boebert, she was already in the Capitol, right? I mean, there's no evidence whatsoever that I've heard or seen that she was part of the insurrection or whatever. But they want to label anybody who is not a progressive leftist Democrat as an insurrectionist, you know. It kind of reminds me, I know we're coming kind of to the conclusion of football season. It's kind of like one of those things where, like in Alabama, you know, I'm a diehard Gator fan. We pretty much sucked this year, but that's a side story. But like in Alabama, you either have to be an Auburn fan or a Bama fan, a Tide fan, right? You can't, the one thing you can't, I learned a long time ago because I traveled through there all the time, used to go to all the football games. You can't say, if they ask you who you're for, Auburn or Alabama, you can't say it doesn't matter because that literally is sacrilegious. So you can say, well, I don't like neither one of you, I'm a Gator fan. They'll accept that. They may hammer on you, but they'll accept that. But to say it doesn't matter is sacrilegious. Well, it's the same thing now with this January 6th. You either think that it was the worst day since the Civil War and white supremacy is ruling the world, or you don't, you know. And if you say, well, I don't really know one way or another, then both sides are going to jump on you. It's kind of like that. But as far as this January 6th thing, I started to do a whole story on this, but I just want to mention it. And I don't know enough about it to really have too big of an opinion on it, but I'm going to give you one nonetheless. On a side note, how about Buffalo Hat Guy? And I can't Buffalo Hat Guy. You know, here's the picture of him. This dude, he's been in prison now for almost a year in solitary confinement. Well, he was just adjudicated guilty, I think yesterday, or maybe, I guess it was Wednesday. And he was sentenced to 40-some months, basically 3 years in prison. It's really like 4 because he's already served. I don't think he got time served in that. I mean, to me, I don't care what you think of this dude. There's no evidence that I've seen where he actually committed any violence whatsoever. A bit goofy, cockeyed, you know, all this kind of thing. Did he incite stuff? Possibly. And is 3 years justified for that? What about due process? What about comparison? I mean, the people who literally was burning New York and crashing buildings and stealing all kind of stuff and ran over police officers and everything, they weren't even charged. All charges were dropped. The people who burned America are not being charged whatsoever. And yet this dude is, and the young man that, raped and sodomized a 13-year-old girl when he was wearing a dress in Virginia was not only, he was prosecuted, but he was put in another school, and the principals and the superintendents denied that it even happened. Yet this guy gets 3, in reality 4 years in prison. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't care which side of this insurrection day you come down on. That, to me, seems like a political prosecution. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I'm wrong. But let me just reiterate this, and we'll move on to our next story here. In the spirit of trying to help, I am willing to referee between Miss Boebert and also, what was it? Ilhan Omar. I'm willing to referee with them anytime, anywhere. And if we want to add to the bill, let's just bring in Ocasio-Cortez and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and we'll make it a tag team championship match. Now, that would be something, man. That would be something to see. I guarantee you, you'd pay money to see that. But let me just tell you, I'm not bringing Swalwell into it. I'm just not. And, it's not a sexual thing. He just doesn't sit well with me, and I really wouldn't want him to do this.
Listening to the president talk about this swap of dirt for U.S. military aid.
Chris, so far, the evidence is uncontradicted that the president used taxpayer dollars to ask the Ukrainians to help him cheat an election. And the complaint that I've heard from Republicans all last week.
Wow. Did you hear that? If you did. Now, of course, Chris Wallace defended him and said, oh, that was a coffee cup sliding, I don't think it makes that kind of noise, sliding across the desk at the MSNBC studios. But most people believe that Swalwell just let one rip right there. So I don't want him to be in the ring because, I want a clean fight, not like that. But maybe what is it with these these Democrats and farting now? I mean, there's all kind of jokes behind it, but apparently it's real. Maybe they should just call it like they did Bill Clinton cigars. They could just call it a presidential, because Biden apparently is doing this all over Europe, man. Do you remember that? We live in some interesting times, do we not? I mean, this is just crazy times. Sometimes you got to laugh, you got to cry, but I stand by my statement. I am willing to referee this fight for the betterment, the good of America, anytime, anywhere. All right, we're going to move on to our next show, but before our next topic, but before we do, I got to tell you about this opportunity, this free gift that I have. Go above the video, no matter when or where you're watching it. Check out johnmartinhealth.com. That's johnmartinhealth.com. Follow the directions, and you will get absolutely free a $50 value, a bottle of zinc, and a bottle of D3, vitamin D3, absolutely free, no obligations, because one of the things that I think we should all agree on coming out of this pandemic, however you want to slash it, that we should agree that we all need to be healthier. We definitely need to be healthier, and nutrition and getting your proper supplements is a good way to do that. So I got a gift for you, no obligation whatsoever, johnmartinhealth.com, free zinc, free D3, $50 value, absolutely free to you. All right, this next story should shock. There's so many stories that come out that we should be shocked by this. But who the heck is going to be shocked by this? We're in the middle of all of the crises, which are not crises. The Democrats have found a remarkable way to solve crisis. There isn't one. There's no crisis. Well, keep in mind, while you're paying super high dollars for gasoline this weekend, keep in mind that Joe and his administration is proposing to shut down another pipeline, active pipeline, not like the XL pipeline that was under construction. This is one that is pumping natural gas and crude oil and has been for years. Check this out from the Washington Examiner. With gas prices rising, Biden administration considers closing yet another pipeline. And I love that meme right there. I mean, how many people have done that actually? I know a few people who have had buyer's remorse. I got a friend of mine, I think I told this story a while back, but if I say it, it bears repeating. He's a friend of the show. Well, his name is Cliff. I've talked about him before. But he is diehard pro-Trump and anti-Biden. And he was at a gas station a couple of months ago. He's got all kind of stuff on his tailgate, anti-Biden. And a couple came up there and said, "Excuse me, sir, but we'd like to apologize to you." And he was thinking that he might have they run him off in traffic or something like that. They said, "No, but we saw your bumper stickers. You got Trump stickers and everything else. And we thought, we feel so bad. We voted for Joe Biden. And we've had such buyer's remorse that we want to make amends for it. And the best way we could think of is to apologize to someone like you that might actually appreciate it." And I know my buddy wouldn't lie. That's amazing, right? But with a fast-developing energy crisis on their hands, President Joe Biden and his team seem to think there's nothing they can do. We're going to play you a video right now. I've played it a couple of days ago. This is Energy Secretary Granholm, and she was asked on an MSNBC show about what her plan was for lowering energy prices, gasoline specifically, in the United States of America. And this is the Energy Secretary's response. Check it out.
Michigan, it is $2.89 a gallon. I guess that's better than in California. What is the Granholm plan to increase oil production in America?
Oh my God, that is hilarious. Would that I had the magic wand on this. As you know, of course, oil is a global market. It is controlled by a cartel. That cartel is called OPEC, and they made a decision yesterday that they were not going to increase beyond what they were already planning.
So she's laughing. He's talking about people suffering, American citizens suffering at the gas pump. The Energy Secretary is literally laughing about it. I mean, what is it with these Democrats and laughing through all of these different crises? She said, "Would that I could have anything to do with that." And she blames OPEC. OPEC. Now keep in mind, Joe Biden recently went to OPEC and actually asked them to pump more fuel, and they said, sorry about your luck. But Joe Biden, on his very first day in office, canceled the XL pipeline that was bringing energy and independence into the United States of America. And there's a lot of reasons why we're paying such high prices for fuel, but the biggest part is Biden's energy policy. It's crazy. And there you have the woman who is in charge of it literally laughing about it. I mean, I've said this, I've been saying this lately, but if I say it, it bears repeating. There's debate going on of whether or not, we talked about polling about Biden yesterday. Go back and look at our podcast. Remember the excluded app. Check it out. But spell it with the drop the E, put the big X on there. But Joe Biden, man, I mean, people are beginning to see what he is all about. And they're beginning to believe that he is not qualified to be president. So there's this debate that he's not physically and mentally fit to be president. This is what the polling, a liberal poll by Politico, by the way, not my words, their words. But to me, what's crazy about this is people debate whether Joe Biden is the worst president ever. Now, he's only been up there like half a year, right? So, I mean, you can make a case he is. Well, Jimmy Carter might say, "Hold my beer," if he actually drank or whatever. But one thing is becoming really clear, and this Granholm is a good example of it. Joe Biden may or may not be the worst president ever, but he has chosen the worst cabinet in the history of our country. The history of our country. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Show me one member of his cabinet that is actually qualified to be there. I can't find a single one, so show me where I'm wrong. I don't think you can. Back to this article. They blame OPEC, talking about the Biden administration. They blame OPEC, but the fact is the administration has worked to reduce domestic oil production in the name of combating climate change. That's what this is all about. As if canceling the net zero Keystone XL pipeline wasn't damaging enough, drum roll, wait for it, the Biden administration is now reportedly considering the Lane 5 oil pipeline in Michigan. I think we have a picture basically of where it's located. You see that bridge there? I think that's Windsor. But you got I think there's like 5 different pipelines that come under there. And it is bringing oil and natural gas and crude oil in the United States, and it has been for decades now. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not like it's leaking or anything, but they're proposing closing an existing pipeline, and Canada is actually fighting them about that. But let me just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is all a part of the plan. That's what this is. And we're going to get more in detail in a minute. But what they really want is you not to be able to drive cars. They want to literally turn us back to this. There you go. They want us to get your feet ready. I mean, I've been walking every day just in case. Get your feet ready, because yabba dabba doo. This is what we're going to, if they get their way, it's yabba dabba doo. We, the American people, are screwed. And we'll be pedaling and pumping and every dadgum thing else. This is by design. And I'm going to play you some evidence here. I played this earlier this week, or maybe I think it was actually last week. But I'm going to give you concrete proof that I'm right on this. You could take my word for it, but I'm about to show you some proof before this story's over. The Line 5 pipeline has been the subject of a conflict between Canada and Michigan as the Canadian government tries to prevent the state under Gretchen Whitmer from shutting down the pipeline, which has been operating since 1950s. Since the 50s. In October, Canada invoked a 1977 treaty escalating the conflict and forcing the Biden administration to weigh in. So my question right off the top is, why is this even a debate? You have a pipeline that is operating efficiently. There's no charges that I know of leaks and mismanagement that has been operating. And you'll see in a minute just how much it helps that region of the country. Been going since the 50s. Why is this even a debate? Why are they even debating it? And there's a very simple explanation, and really a sinister explanation. And it goes back to the Flintstone car. This thing, I told you I'd always tell my audience when we're being played. We're being played. This is all part of the plan. You don't believe it? I'm telling you, it's being, and I'm going to give you proof later. This is all being orchestrated. And I looked up the definition of orchestrated. I used it because this pretty much is what is happening in D.C. right now with a host of issues, all being orchestrated. The definition of orchestrated: arrange or direct the elements of a situation to produce a desired effect, especially surreptitiously. Do you get that? To produce, arrange, to produce a desired effect surreptitiously. And surreptitiously means in a way that attempts to avoid notice or attention secretively. Tell me where I'm wrong about that. All of this stuff is happening. They cancel the XL pipeline. To me, if you look at it, ladies and gentlemen, because everybody talks about Biden and them being incompetent and his administration. I just told you they're the worst, but I've never said they were incompetent in this sense. They shouldn't be in their positions, but everything is going according to plan. They absolutely, the supply chain, they want us to be permanently dependent upon China. They want us to be overwhelmed at the border because they're wanting these people, because what they're trying to do is get these illegal immigrants on the government teat. They want them on the dole. They don't want them coming and working. It ain't about jobs, because I maintain this. If any of these immigrants that are illegally coming to our country, and I don't blame them, by the way, but if they're coming to our country, if they ever get a taste of the American dream, they're not going to vote Democrat. So the Democrats are trying to flood us with people, get them sucked on to government health care, to government teat, so that they are totally dependent upon government, and then they will have no choice but to vote Democrat. So this is going exactly as they planned it. So I fear that they're not really incompetent. they're just evilly trying to destroy America. Tell me where I'm wrong. Back to this pipeline deal. Line 5, listen to these statistics, ladies and gentlemen. And this is what Gretchen Whitmer wants to shut down, and now the Biden administration seems to be complicit on it. Line 5 delivers 65% of the propane, natural gas basically, to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. They don't need any heat up there, right? And 55% of the rest of the state's supply, the lower part. It transports up to 22.68 million gallons per day of light crude oil and natural gas liquids, according to the pipeline's operator, Enbridge. A shutdown of the pipeline would create a shortage of, check this out, a shortage of 14.7 million U.S. gallons per day for gas, diesel, and jet fuel in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Ontario, and Quebec. Now, Gretchen Whitman is 100% behind this. She's behind. Think about that. Does our country really need to be short 14.7 million gallons a day of gas, diesel, and jet fuel at this point in time? Are you listening, Michigan? Are you listening, Ohio and Pennsylvania? I mean, come on. You want to get truly woke, you better be paying attention to what is actually happening, because they're trying to do irreparable damage to the United States. These Democrats, and it's going to get worse, ladies and gentlemen, because they are realizing that they're probably going to get shellacked in 2022 midterms. God help us, I hope they do. And there's a good chance that the next president of the United States could either be Donald Trump or a Republican of some other ilk, you know, that kind of thing. So they're trying to ram all this stuff through and make it where it's irreparable damage to the United States, so that we'll be over that cliff if we're not already. Back to this story. Everyone is suffering from rising energy prices at the pump and at home, but the Biden administration seems intent on making the problem worse by blindly following outdated notion that the U.S. must destroy reliable energy sources to combat climate change. And now we're getting to the crux of it. And it also forgets that much of the recent emission reduction in the United States is due to the increased use of natural gas. Donald Trump had us energy independent for the first time in my lifetime. Now, I told you I had proof of what I'm saying about this being orchestrated. Now, we played you the video of Granholm laughing, the Secretary of Energy, laughing about gas prices. Now I'm going to play you a video. I broke it down on a show last week, but I want to play this to you. And towards the very end of this, she tells you exactly why they're doing it. Check it out.
Americans in what will likely be a cold winter, most of them are, expect to pay higher prices for heating their homes?
Yeah, this is going to happen. It will be more expensive this year than last year. We are in a slightly beneficial position, well, certainly relative to Europe, because their chokehold of natural gas is very significant. They're going to pay 5 times higher. But we have the same problem in fuels that the supply chains have, which is that the oil and gas companies are not flipping the switch as quickly as the demand requires. And so that's why the president has been focused on both the immediate term and the long term. Let us get off of the volatility associated with fossil fuels and associated with others who don't have our country's interests at heart, and invest in moving to clean energy where we will not have this problem. And that's so much of what these 2 bills are focused on.
That's it, right there.
Americans.
That's it, right there, ladies and gentlemen. She tells you, let me just translate that for you. She tells you that we must get off of these, petroleum products so that we can invest in other alternative sources of energy, which I'm not opposed to, by the way. I just want it to actually be reliable and cost effective and test and be part of the open market, that kind of thing. I don't want to create false economies. But she's telling you, if you really listen to what she's saying, and in effect, it's really kind of evil. Because what she's telling you is she wants the American people to suffer so much at the pump and everywhere else that they will go running to the Green New Deal. That is what she's talking about. She's pretty crafty and polite of how she's saying it, but let me just say that again. What they're doing is trying to make it so painful for the American people that they will cry and want anything possible and look for solutions anywhere. That's what despots do, man. And if you don't believe me, listen to this. During a CNN town hall in October, Biden falsely claimed there's nothing he can do to reduce gas prices, saying, I don't see anything that's going to happen in the meantime that's going to significantly reduce gas prices. Like maybe quit. I mean, they're now accusing the petroleum companies of price gouging. I'm not saying they don't do some of that. I'm simply saying that the reason if true, like the Democrats said, and they're price gouging, the only way is because of the inflation caused by their energy policy. And listen to this next paragraph. Keep this next paragraph in mind. We're about to close out the show. In 2019, the U.S. celebrated becoming a net exporter of oil for the first time since 1952. 2 years later, domestic oil producers are hesitant to ramp up production after suffering huge losses during the pandemic, facing pressure from climate activists and investors to switch to renewable energy. 1952, ladies and gentlemen. That's why when Joe Biden talks about building back better, I just wish it would get back to the way it was. I told you, ladies and gentlemen, we are being played. And I'm going to read this definition again because I think it sums it up. Orchestrated, arrange or direct the elements of a situation to produce a desired effect, especially surreptitiously, and that surreptitiously means in a way that attempts to avoid notice or attention done secretly. Going according to plan. It simply is. And like I said in this meme right here, to me, build back better, I just wish it'd go back to the way it was, but that ain't going to happen, at least not for a little bit. You know, maybe we can get President Trump back in there. But this is all going according to plan. Do not be distracted because, you know, the violence in the streets. I've been talking about how they want the Rittenhouse thing to go because they need violence in the streets because they cannot run on their record. How can they run on their energy record in this case? How can they possibly do it? They can't. So and they know that people are going to get upset if they close another pipeline, so they're trying to distract you by all different types of things. Do not be distracted. We must man the political ramparts or we're going to have to man the real ones again. As I tell you, not everybody can support those of us or can be a fighter, but everybody can support those of us in the fight. So take advantage of the gifts, you know, johnmartinhealth.com. Look at the BDU, you know, the Second Amendment, all those things, links above our show. You know, I hope you have a great weekend. I'm planning on myself. Hopefully I'll have some good pictures to show you Monday. But ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you, we have got to rise up. We have got, and I'm not talking about violence, we have got to pay attention to what's happening. That is why I battle ignorance and apathy every week, every day of the week, because Thomas Jefferson famously told us we cannot be both ignorant and free, or we want what never was and what never will be. So we have got to man the political ramparts, or we're going to have to man the real ones again. I don't want that to happen. Who's with me? Hang in there with me. As I say, have a great weekend. Go to all our social media sites, like them, share them with others. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great nation because she absolutely deserves it. And man, she needs it now more than ever. But as I say, each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.